Welcome to our third episode of A Bird's Eye View, a spotlight on faculty teaching excellence. Once again, we look forward to sharing remote learning best practices of our outstanding Broward College faculty. My name is Michelle Levine, and I'm the District Director of Faculty Development in CTEL.
Hi, my name is Linda Meridian, and I'm the District Director for Instructional Design.
Joining us today as our faculty guest is Dr. Billy Jones, representing the AAPD pathway.
Dr. Billy Jones is an Assistant Professor of English at South Campus and Miramar West Centers. He teaches English composition, creative writing, and literature courses. He also serves as CTEL South Campus Faculty Coordinator and newly elected Vice President of the Faculty Senate.
A fun fact about Dr. Jones, Billy grew up in a very artsy and musically inclined family with whom he sings or performs on occasion. And I would love to hear that one day, Billy. I would really enjoy that. So welcome, Billy, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's get started. Dr. Jones, can you please describe some of the best practices that you have used to transition your courses to a remote environment?
The unique thing about the transition to a remote environment is this, for me. I've always been an early adopter of technology. So as an educator, this month ends year 24 for me. And I have seen and seen the evolution of technology. It's impacted my own educational journey as well as my own professional journey. So I was always that early adopter who wanted to try new things. And once I try new things, I like to teach it to other people. And so when it was time to transition, I felt it was an opportunity. I still needed to level up because naturally there's certain things that you would do face to face that you would have to crosswalk to a digital or remote platform. But what was neat was that there were a couple of things that I had to first realize. First was that, Billy, you're high energy and you bring a lot of that face to face. How can you transfer that or convey that to a digital platform? One, so I had to be aware of my potentials and limitations. Two, I also had to make sure I could take the pulse of who my students were and know who they were. It was fortunate in a sense that recent pandemic transition and unprecedented events, we were at the half mark of the term. So I had a good time with the students. So there was no interruption in that getting to know the students or building a sense of community among the students that was automatically on autopilot. And then thirdly, it was also helpful that I've always used a web enhanced class. And a web enhanced class is a course that uses learning management systems such as D2L, where I have all of the assignments and resources. Students engage with it daily. I use it in class daily. They're on their phones daily accessing D2L. And so therefore, when it was time to crosswalk to what things were expected, they already knew that practice. In fact, I always told them I'm a green teacher. I don't like to touch paper. And that's something rare for English faculty. Well, not rare, but it's becoming more commonplace among English faculty, to be okay with not touching a piece of paper and that you could still have impact and give support to students through a digital platform. And so all of those things, yes, I was familiar, but I had to chunk out things and say, wait a minute, Billy, slow down and let's take things step by step. So step one, I needed to make sure I communicated with students on behalf of the institution because I'm on the front line and what's going on, and that learning would still continue. Being flexible and being sensitive to their respective situations. I feel because of the rapport I have with students, those who were having greater challenges, they convey those readily. We worked out plans so that they could get the technology or resources they need, and then eventually they were caught up to speed. They were good. And I have 5 classes of English Comp and Creative Writing combined. And so this definitely was, it was a changer, a game changer for all of us. And then secondly, I was very fortunate to always use daily learning agendas in class. So I use them as skeletons for me, as well as for the students, so they know each week what they're doing in a class. I bring it up every class at the beginning, and I show them this is where we're at this week, and I've already marked off or identified the things of where we've gone and then where we're going to scaffold that learning. So that was easy. I was able to do that, such as in the sample that's provided. where I provide this weekly learning agenda where students automatically know what we're doing in class. At the top component of that agenda, I use it to bring the occasion, as well as everything that's doing the class is always on the second half of the agenda, and I color code it. So anything that's in the yellow are major assignments or essays or activities, and the things that are green are discussion post oriented. And as days or the deadlines pass, I just delete those things and the agenda gets shorter and shorter. So this actually, it exactly mirrors what I'm doing in the syllabus, but it gives them a micro view of what we're doing per week versus the major macro view that can sometimes be overwhelming when you look at the syllabus as a whole.
That's excellent. I really love that idea of having it all right there, and it kind of gives you a roadmap of where you're going, not only in the class, but how this relates to what you're doing in the whole scheme of things for the course. And I think that's an excellent strategy. Is there anything else that you would like to demo for us of any projects or activities that you're doing in class in the remote environment to engage your students?
Oh, I'm doing several things.
I'm sure you are.
I'll share, and that's the other thing. When you can't have 1,000 flowers blooming. I always tell this to teachers. And as you know, Michelle, in our work, we facilitate a lot of workshops. And one of my most favorite workshops to facilitate is the project-based learning. And this is a special time for faculty to really rethink the things that they're kind of doing and to see how, in what ways could they use a PBL, for instance, a project-based learning with a full assessment and or rubric or whatever that may be, to evaluate the benchmarks of student learning and gains. And then using that project to teach in many segments the aspects of the whole project. And that's reinforced, in my case, that's the research paper. So I want to share a couple things that I do that helps get the students thinking, not only about research, but also the fascinating word about literature. So I want to start with research first. I love gamification. And so who doesn't like a game, right? And playing games and having a good old time. And so number one, when I'm doing these lectures, even just like I would in class, I always have this 15 to 20 minute round talking, and then I have an immediate activity, like a think, pair, share, or something to that effect to break up the monotony. So that I'm not just I'm not a talking head, but I'm using the opportunity to scaffold learning in chunks and segments so that the students can receive and apply readily what they immediately gained. And if that requires 2 or 3 segments on a very dense topic, then so be it. And so one of those things that I'm about to demo now is actual activity that I do. And this is in teaching APA in-text citation. And so in class, and as well as virtually, students are given this game. So what they'll do is they'll receive this form. And in this case, I show it on the screen of my Blackboard screen. And after I've given a 20, this one took about 20 minutes, a 20-minute lecture on how to crosswalk them, because this is for 1102, by the way. 1102 students come in, and they come in with the expectation of knowing modern language association style of writing. But I also feel as a faculty, it is important that I prepare students for APA, American Psychological Association style of writing. So by the time they're done with me, they know APA very fully. They've already been informed of MLA from 1101. And so I first teach summarization, paraphrasing, and quoting. What's the difference? What's the value, etc. So that's a day before. And then I immediately go into this activity, the following day, if not the same class, where we crosswalk it to teaching. I have little Jonesism songs. So I said, we're going to show you what a backloaded citation versus a front-loaded citation. So I do this little game and this little song, and they think I'm crazy. But then afterwards, what happens next is it's called a grammar war. So hear it is, okay? So let's see if you all like to play, you can. So here goes, Michelle and Belinda. So what you see on the screen is I'll tell the students, I give them a little snippet of an actual excerpt that came from a book. So if you look at the opening, the instructions read, circle the letter of the APA in-text citation that is handled correctly. So I basically give them a sentence or a part of a narrative that shows the potential of an embedded in-text citation. And so let me go back there because I want to go back to the first page. And so I show them with the demo, there's already an annotated version. And what it says is, and I'm assuming you can all see this too, but what it says here, it says the student is quoting from page 49 of an article on parapsychology written by Peter Greasley and published in 2000. So their job is to choose, which of those two sentences or excerpts from a narrative is embedding the in-text citation correctly? And they'll look carefully and they'll say, is it A or B? And of course, they can see it's annotated for A. So I immediately ask them, so why is it A? And they tell me why, because, as we know, in APA, the little p is used, and the minus p in the second one is more MLA bound. And so that helps them reinforce the different nuances that take place. And there are 10 of these sentences that reinforce this. But here's the catch. So now at this point, I break them out into breakout teams. And Blackboard Collaborate allows us to break out students into groups. And then I give them some time. I go around and do a round robin. Once I've given them the groups, once I've identified on my screen, and this takes a little practice, but once I've identified who's one of the lead students or a student in a class in that group, I'll give that student a magic number. So I'll say, you're number 1, you're number 2, you're number 3, and I'll do a round robin of these groups of 4s until all 8 or 10 of the questions are exhausted. Then I give them some time in their groups to look at the question. I give them about 3 minutes to look at the question, discern for themselves what is the correct answer out of the 2 choices, such as 1 or 2, and number 1. And then they'll choose the letter of the correct answer. So once that time is done, so I give all these groups, I usually give about 5 minutes or so for them to take a look and really digest where they're at so they can come to a consensus. Once they come back, I bring them back to the main room after the breakout session. I bring them back to the main room and I tell them, okay, so we start our game. And then I become like the co-host of the show, the host of the show. And then I tell them to give me the correct answer. We go through it, they'll say correct, but then this is where it gets interesting. So let's say for number 1, let's try it. Would you like to try, Michelle?
Yes, but I'm really afraid I'm going to embarrass myself.
No, it's okay. This is learning, okay? So let's try it, okay? The student is quoting from page 26 of an article. This is number 1, by the way, so read to yourself as I read aloud, class. The student is quoting from page 26 of an article by Peter Greasley, published in 2000. Out of the 2 choices that are here, class, letter is A, which says Greasley 2000 pointed out that the clients who seek out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, end quote, page 26, versus letter B. Where do you think that out of the 2 narrative pieces, which one uses the in-text citation and as well as the conventions of grammar that relate to it correctly? In this case, it's just a citation. What do you think, Michelle? You can give a guess, it's okay.
I'm going to go with B.
Done. Excellent job. Let's reinforce why it is a B. So group, can you tell me why? And this is when I would ask the group to tell me why. And then as you can see, it's because the period that page numbers are provided, that in citation is included with the sentence. That's why the period goes after. So then I'll ask the class, okay, group. And then I draw on the screen with my magic little wand here. And I'll say, see this sentence here? And this is what gets them. So if they get the question right, they get 1 point. But then I ask them, would you like a bonus question? And they have the choice to accept the bonus question, or they can refer it to another group. It gets very interesting. And the bonuses are worth 2 points. So these bonus points that they're gaining, they are points that they can rack up, and they love it. They go crazy for this. They get very, very competitive about this, by the way. And what they do is they'll go in and they'll start talking, and sometimes they'll refer. They're at the top. Hey, I want to refer to another group. Whoever they refer to has to accept it. So that's the catch. And so in this particular case, you see the sentence that I've underlined for you? Let's say your group has said yes. So then my question would be to you. So tell me, group, what is the subject of that sentence? What's doing the action in that sentence? What word? So I'm reinforcing now the conventions of the power of mechanics and grammar and conventions. All those things are the conventions of writing, the nuances of the rules. I'm reinforcing that now. So if they told me the correct answer, so they'll give all kind of answers. Most times they're pretty good, especially if they've had me before. So the answer would be few. Few would be the correct answer because few is an indefinite pronoun, and obviously it is few in terms of it's plural and identifying a number, and the verb can blame follows it. So this just reinforces. So I teach grammar in the context of teaching writing. So there's not an entire day of 1102 English where students are coming in. Today we're going to learn commas. That should have already occurred. And so instead, when I'm teaching writing, and I'm teaching the power of academic writing, I'm teaching grammar in the context of that. So this is just an example, and they go crazy for this. They go crazy, and those points that they gain, every 20 points equals an extra credit aid that counts in the 10% category, which is participation in the course. So you can earn up to 3 of those in a term. And they love it. They go crazy for it. And that also is an opportunity for reinforcement. Like when we have virtual events, like when we had the festival, had the transfer over online, we had some of our venues online. I give extra credit incentives based on the event for attending and completing a particular task or activity related to the event. Many students take advantage of that. And the same would apply face-to-face. So that token economy process or incentive building, it's just, they love it. They love it. And this is just one of several ways in how I use that gamification. The other is the more popular Kahoot as well. I bring in Kahoot all the time. In fact, I'm doing that on Wednesday to reinforce what I just taught yesterday in my 1102 class. And they're looking forward to it. They even ask if I put it on the agenda and if I forget to bring it up, oh, they go crazy. So I feel that in the day, if not, and it's not every class, because some days are more focused than not. But I would say every week I'd end the last 15, 20 minutes of one class with this type of reinforcement, and it works, and they enjoy it.
I absolutely love this because you're taking a topic, a citation, which is such well, I'm a math and computer science person, so maybe I'm speaking just for myself, but this is just a grueling topic for me. APA style, MLA style, and then add grammar on top of it, and that's just a triple whammy for me. But the way that you've made it fun is just phenomenal. I wish that I had you, Billy, when I was learning all of this stuff. Absolutely amazing the way that you're able to do that and engage everybody, even in the remote environment. Honestly, the way that you're doing it, it seems as if it's just as engaging as if they were face-to-face, if not more so, because you have every single person hands-on. And I love how you're using the breakout groups for them to just, discuss it together. So that gives them a little bit of added confidence that they've had that discussion first. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Love that.
Thank you, Billy. That was great. So can you please share how you modify the way you typically welcome students to your course on day one, now that we're remote and not face-to-face?
So that is a great question. So a week ago, we started a new term, and I felt like after 8 weeks or 7 to 8 weeks of, a newly modified transition course from face-to-face to remote, now I can hit the ground running with a new face, a new expectation, and a clear expectation, understanding of where I'm at and how this will work moving forward. And so the first thing that I do, and I'm going to share my screen, if I may, so that you can see my D2L shell. So let me put it on student view first. And as I share the screen, I will talk. So I want you to see a couple of things that I'm doing that work very well for me. Firstly, if you notice when you log into my D2L shell, and I believe you can all see this on your screen, correct? So I use a lot of visuals, and this has always been the case, but even more now, these notes and using signage and infographics are even more important. So what I do is I posted this, and as you can see, this is an example, and they see this all the time. So sometimes they'll tell me, well, Dr. Jones, where are you for your office hours? And I go over the syllabus, I review the agenda. I have a very scripted agenda. You'd be very proud to know, Michelle, that as an AQ graduate, the American Colleges and University Educators Consortium, I remember one of my most favorite segments was that graphic syllabus. And there was an activity where they told us how to introduce the course, not just reading verbatim, but showing a graphic organizer that introduces the elements of your syllabus. I have one, which I'll show you shortly.
Oh, excellent.
So I use those infographics to help reinforce visually the things that are in text. So as you can see here, every time when the students know when my office hours are available, they're posted here, as you can see. It's also in the syllabus, and they also have the same access and links inside there. But what I did was I showed them exactly how to navigate the learning management system and to turn on their notifications. First day, I said, turn on your notifications to know when I submit something, when I post something for announcements. You decide in how you want to receive that, via email or text, and/or text. And then, as you can see by the note here, keeping in line with accessibility laws and rights, making sure that all community learners will gain the information. I listed the text underneath the file or picture, and then there's the link where they can enter my class. So they don't have to go around shopping into the menu to find out where's the Blackboard link to go to Dr. J during his office hours. They're right here in front of them. So I got them an immediate habit of being able to check regularly these things. I also send out, I didn't send this out, but each time there is a class to start, like I did yesterday, I send out an email with the link to our next Blackboard Collaborate session. I go ahead and send that out with them so that they'll know 48 hours before that this is coming up. So I send it to them via D2L email as well as to their student email accounts. I do concurrently. They say that's very helpful. So I've had 100% attendance, by the way, in every class, and I've had 3 classes already.
Wow.
And so I've also had, and I'll share this as well, during the transition session, I always have 90% attendance regularly. They always show up. Even if they're not doing sometimes what's requested of them, they always show up. So I appreciate that very much. And so I always had 90% attendance before face-to-face, in the face-to-face. In the remote setting, I had 90% attendance as well. At least 90% attendance. In fact, it was even higher. It's like 96 and 98 most days. Because
Wow.
Yeah, so I was very fortunate, and they told me, they said, oh, because it's you, we like you. I'm like, well, you should be doing this for everyone. Come on now. And so this is one example. As you can see, I use this as a means. I'm using infographics, things that I've learned and acquired in other classes that I've taught or taken at the college through CTEL or in outside communities that I brought in through professional development learning, such as the Adobe Spark series that we offer through CTEL. And so using these infographics helps enhance the beauty and quality, and it makes it more captivating. So students know exactly where to go and what to look for. And so, and as you can know, you can turn these off, and certain things have more visibility than others. So using the announcement page is part one. So that's definitely, this has been one of the biggest, I used it before, but I use it even more now to help refer, like what I posted today about the CARES Act grant opportunity for students. And I haven't posted a visual yet because there were so many words and so many requirements. I said, you know what, let me just talk about it. I'll talk about this in class on Wednesday, and I'll add a graphic later that'll help signify, if not enhance, the quality of it. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, as I shared before, and I don't mean to be very long-winded here, but I just want to share this very briefly. You can still see my screen, but I wanted to show you my infographic. I hope I released it in the course syllabus. I didn't. It's on the other side. So there's an infographic part I wanted to show you that shows specifically, students can see immediately by this graphic how much their grade counts in what category, because I use categories, and how 100%. So I use that to explain the different assignments and expectations in class. Instead of just reading verbatim, they're able to apply it with a visual.
That's amazing. I love hearing, of course, that you're applying your AQ strategies, and we know that there's so many of them. But to hear it and how you're using it practically just warms my heart, Billy. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
And I love how you are not just, you're going over with them how to actually use the LMS. I love that you said that you teach them how to turn on notifications. And that's something that I'm going to start doing, because I never know if the students are actually seeing the announcements as they post or how they're getting them. So that's a really great idea to make sure that that's set up from the get-go.
Billy, I have a question. Oh, sorry.
But before,
because I was going to say, you teach a very like your subject has a wide range of students. Do you know what I mean? Like ones that are first-time college students to ones that are more experienced. So it's interesting to see how, you go over the foundation of the basics in order to make sure that they all succeed,
Thank you so much. Michelle knows something particular regarding the notifications. When you tell them about notifications, I tell them 2 things specifically. And this is even in a face-to-face class. I said, listen, folks, I see so many students. I have 1,000 Marias and 10 Brians, And so it would help me if you could provide an image. It doesn't have to be of yourself. It could be of your cat, your dog, your car, your favorite vacation location. If you can provide an image or an icon that represents who you are on the roster, that'd be really cool, because it also helps me signify who you are and an individual identity. And then the other thing too, when I'm demoing it in class briefly, when I tell them to turn on notifications, I myself don't hit the word notification after that point, because then they'll see my cell number. And so, I just wanted to remind you that when you tell them to turn on notification, let them do it on their own or at their leisure, because once you click it on the screen. So I often tell students, this is also day one after seeing all those magnificent infographics, course syllabus and policies, et cetera. Then I tell them, I try to do all this, by the way. I don't want to talk the entire time, Frank, because I immediately want to start teaching. I actually started learning on the first day. So there's no early release of class. We're going to start learning right then, even if it's something basic or a little primitive version of the grammar war game, because they love that. So I depending on the pulse and where I'm going and the time, I'll play with one another. So I'll tell them is, as part of the course, to stay apprised of things that are due, please you are encouraged to turn on your notifications in the class. And the notifications in D2L works as follows. You see in the upper right hand corner of my screen where my name is as a student. So all I have to do is click on Billy Jones, and there's a notification option that appears here. And now I won't proceed any further from this. I'm now going to verbally tell you what happens, because I don't need you all seeing my cell number. They all start laughing. So I said, well, when you go inside, you're going to see several options for grades. And then I show on the screen, I'll say, well, here are the following things, or I'll dictate. These are the following notifications I recommend. Anytime an assignment is due, so that way you'll get a notification via email and or text 2 days up to 1 day before. Secondly, when I posted your grade, we're in the business of offering grades for the work you contribute. And then thirdly, for any updates, important updates or announcements on the announcement page. Anything else you want to turn on, go for it. But those are the 3 things. And let's take a moment, if you will. If you'd like to take that time now, in this time setting, let's go ahead and click on notifications. So they go ahead and do it. And so granted, if they're doing it from their phone, they got to wait till they get the text. So this could take up time. So most times I tell them to do this afterwards, and they do it. They do it automatically because they have no issues and knowing when things are due. And I also have the notifications on so that I know when things are due, so I can be reminded when it's time to grade, so I can give feedback in a very meaningful time frame.
And just to build on that too, I just wanted to mention, because you're an amazing instructor, so you probably don't even realize that you're doing this, but just to recognize your announcement here, this was an email that came out from the college, I believe yesterday, about the CARES Act and the amazing opportunity for students. So in a remote environment, there may be information that is not relayed to the students, or maybe they get so many emails that they don't realize it. So you incorporating this announcement into your course is so amazing, you know what I mean? Because it helps for students to be able to be included and to recognize opportunities that they may have overlooked,
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think, as you mentioned, we're the ones who are on the front line as faculty. And so it's really our duty to give those students that information. We don't know really if they've seen those announcements or not. And this really, especially combined with the notification, you're really ensuring that they're seeing that important information. I keep saying, to me, the 2 most, and you just mentioned both of these, Billy, the 2 most important things to me to be successful in a remote environment are communication and feedback. And you're doing such a phenomenal job with both of those. And that's why we have you here today, right? Because we're just so excited to share your excellence. But I am definitely going to adopt, you learn something new every day. And so I am definitely going to adopt that practice of having students turn on their notification. I do show them how to forward their email because some of them are not in the habit of checking their D2L email daily. So usually they have another email that they are checking, and I do ask them to forward it to whatever that email might be. But I really love the idea of the notifications because that'll come up right on their phone. So that's excellent.
Michelle, one thing I like to add, I do share with them as well. Thank you for all that feedback, both you and Belinda. One other thing I teach them as well early on, there are 2 other cool tools that I teach them too in that first week. So day 1, I give them a lot, so I have to let loose and get into learning, right? But on day 2, I teach them another tidbit, which is 1, how to access Microsoft 365, how to access the cloud so that they can, be able to engage in the cloud platform as well, so they can have those resources available to them. And that helps so much. And believe it or not, the other is how to use Adobe Spark. So that when we're having class lectures, instead of just saying, let's raise our hand, let's start with an opening question, which is great, or post in the chat line. This is cool too that I'll do. Ask them to post in the chat line a particular, quote or statement. I'll give a leading question and they'll start talking or on the mic. Usually they like to talk to me, so they'll use a microphone. They have no problem using a mic. They'll avoid the camera, but they'll use that mic. So the other
just a quick question. How do you, for the Adobe Spark and then for Office 365, for anyone that's listening right now that would want to share that information with their students, where can they get that information? And then maybe we could, add that in to make sure that everyone, can relay that information to the students.
So Adobe Spark is one of the few free apps that Adobe in its suite menu of app suites, suites of apps it offers. So they can easily go to Google or your browser and type in Adobe Spark. And there they'll be able to go to see the app, see a really cool demo videos. And the cool thing about it is that it's immediately immersive and neat, and it provides an opportunity for the end user to see what they're getting into before they do it. And so after they've done that, I've taken courses, by the way, Belinda, that help me learn how to use it. So word of advice, if they're using it, before you show it, learn it yourself, just like anything else.
Right.
And then afterwards, once I've learned and I mastered it well, so then I do a little lesson in class. I'm about to do that next week. I'll say, folks, so I'm going to teach you a little 20-minute lesson on how to use Adobe Spark. Because what I want them to do during class lectures, instead of just giving me a word lecture or word response, or before we start talking about, as you saw on the agenda, there's a theme called Predictions, Omens, and Oracles. And it's one of their really cool readings, and it's one of those interesting topics that just grabs them in and lets them talk about predictions. So I said, before we start talking about that, I want you all to break out in small groups. And I'm going to give you about 8 minutes to do this. I want you to create a group, because I also want them, this is why we're face-to-face, this would be done that way. But now in a virtual setting, it will be done remotely as well. So we're about to try this next week. And so what they'll do is they can do this on their phone or their computer, because Adobe Spark is cloud-based. They can do it from anywhere in any app, in any location. I'm going to ask them to create in a small group, so that way they don't have 1,000 images. One image per group or per pairing that represents their overall impression of the reading that they had based on the following question. So now they're giving me these pictures that they're going to be posting or emailing to me. And then I'm going to be using those pictures as backdrops to the discussion before I lead into my full PowerPoint and lecture.
Oh, wow.
So is that something I do every week? No. But whenever I'm covering something that's reading based or theme based, I use Adobe Spark, and they tell me all the time, oh my gosh, I use this in my other classes. I'm seeing their presentations at the end of the term when they do their research presentations. They're embedding these technological resources that they gained over the term in the context of their presentations.
Good. That's amazing.
Yes, absolutely amazing. Wow, Billy, thank you so much for sharing everything with us.
You're welcome.
I do have a question. I mean, you have mentioned so many amazing ways that you've just benefited from the remote learning. I mean, just really taken what you were doing in a face-to-face and continued to do it well in the remote environment. What's been your greatest challenge in this process to go remote?
That's a great question. One of the greatest challenges I feel is realizing I'm going to have to face the music, and I did this last semester in transition season, and that was, Billy, you could do most things, but you're not going to be able to do it all. And instead, I need to go back and survey what I felt was most meaningful in the time frame, A, that I was still allotted, and then B, the platform. How can I still convey those most essential components? And that includes redirecting and evaluating more so my processes, my strategies, etc. So the greatest challenge for me is realizing, okay, Billy, and I said it earlier, higher energy, and I know people feed off of that, and I know how to keep them hanging on the edge of their seats. It's like a show. However, how do I crosswalk that and still keep them engaged and meaningful, making the class relevant and applicable? Those were some really heart-to-heart conversations I had to have with myself in terms of how I've been teaching. I'll be honest as well. I have to say this. I was not a fan of teaching an asynchronous English course online. That's never been my interest because I enjoy the engagement. I love teaching blended. I teach blended and I teach traditional face-to-face on ground. But you know what? This has really, this entire process, as much as I faced that challenge head on, I started realizing, wait a minute, we have the coolest resources at our institution, such as D2L and Blackboard Collaborate, that makes what we're doing a lot more seamless. And so all we have to do is apply it and make it work. And so it makes me realize, after having those moments and conversations with myself, that there were, you know, and I don't have anxiety, but you do get a little overwhelmed in those segments, especially while doing this and dealing with the pandemic and my own well-being and my family's well-being. So all of these things are playing in my head. And then the last other thing that I thought was a challenge, students love to visit me. Like some of my colleagues would tell me at Miramar West, they said, Billy, what are you giving them? They're outside my, and it's all genders, all races, all cultures, but especially males. They follow me around all the time. They'll sit outside my door and wait for me.
It's your energy, Billy. I'm always happy when I'm around you. You just give off such a positive energy.
You know, I told her she's my kid, she's my people, my tribe, you know, and Michelle is. And that is a challenge, though, for you and people like you and me, Michelle, right? Because we're able to convey that face to face. Now I have this screen in front of me. How do I make that connection? Because that also is helpful in times of crises for the institution, let's say, or times of critical need where we need to be able to reach students at like a pandemic, for instance. So they were able to tell me things. They tell me everything. They tell me everything. And that's a good thing because of that relationship. Some of them even tell me, Dr. Jones, I have an hour. They know I have office hours. And these are students who are currently teaching, who I don't teach anymore, by the way. They're moved on. And they'll say, can I just sit here for 20 minutes? And you don't mind me just sitting on my laptop in front of you? Like, I just feel good here. And then when they're there, they don't bother. And then we're talking. And I say, well, how are you? Because if you're in front of me, of course, I'm going to talk to you in some way. And if they're working, they're working. I try to leave them alone and I check a few emails. But I find that that's a challenge because I can't do all that. That's the fun part. We get to know our students and grow them in another way beyond the classroom. And as a student, a faculty advisor as well, I'm a faculty advisor to a student club. So they're always around me. They're like my own kids. And so now they ask, like, oh, well, do you have office hours? We want to come visit. They want an update. And so these things are now the challenges before. It's like, how am I going to do that? Well, the solution, have virtual office hours, Billy, and make that link available to students so they know how to access you and join you in a virtual atmosphere.
This is, you're just, my heart is just smiling, Billy, because you are just such a benefit to this institution. We are so lucky to have you. The students are so lucky. The faculty are so lucky. I just cannot thank you enough for everything you do for all of us, especially for your students. You know, like I said, it's obvious why they want to be around you all the time. I always say, you know, as much Billy time as I can get is I'm gonna try to work it in, because every time I'm around you, I learn and I smile, and that is such a gift that you have.
Thank you.
I think we just have one last question. Belinda, you want to ask the last question?
Sure. Billy, so what advice would you give to any colleagues that are listening in right now in regards to delivering content in a remote environment?
Thank you for that question, Belinda. I want to give this advice is two-part. First, I want to say to those who are now coming on and I don't want to call late adopters, they're emerging technology, instructional technologists. You know, these are folks who are coming in and realizing this may be a potential new normal for some time. Don't be afraid to learn and explore. The computer is not going to break. And there are so many ways in which we can learn and grow. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our own family and in-house resources. The Center for Teaching Excellence in Learning is a great place. Every week, there are courses being offered in just-in-time structures that give folks practical, meaningful, and applicable approaches for learning things. So look at the menu, folks. Go into My Learning, go into your institution's repository of professional development, see what's available. Here's something else. Just like whenever we want to learn something new in our own personal lives, and if I want to know, let's say, I did it last night. I said, you know what? I don't know this new. What happened to this actor? I was watching some show, and I wanted to know what happened to that actor. So what did I do? I picked up my phone and I Googled him.
Mhm.
And the same could apply for us. It's interesting that when it comes to the world of consumerism for our own respective lives, we're quick to search and be informed through the digital rhetoric of others of what we think we should know about something, right? And so the same can be applied for educators. Many educators and other professionals have gone on YouTube and have put up demo videos and instructions. Google, for instance, if you're a music faculty, Google and see how a college professor of music faculty teach remote learning. Just try a few keywords or focuses that really help connect you to the bigger picture and life beyond your general boundary. And it's all in our hands. We have 24-hour and 7-day-a-week easy access to knowledge. And I think that doing our homework, we're teachers. We should be open and embracing the potential for lifelong learning. And so this is a great opportunity to contribute back what we give and expect of our students every day.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, I've been saying since day one that this is really such an opportunity for us to learn and grow. And maybe it was pushing us into the pool instead of going in 1 foot at a time. But once we're in there, we get comfortable and we start learning. And the more we see we can do, the more we want to do. I love the advice just to Google, because there's YouTube videos on just about anything now. So if there's new technology you want to learn, you could watch a YouTube video. Pretty much any phrase you Google, you're going to get back information about that particular topic. And that's great advice. And just being willing to learn. And of course, we are so incredibly thankful, Billy, that you're part of our CTEL family. And thank you for sharing what we do in CTEL and offering that advice to faculty as well to take advantage of our multitude of professional development opportunities to help you. We are here to assist you. And Belinda from Instructional Design, we have Norm behind the scenes, our multimedia specialist from Instructional Design. So many people here that are so willing to help you. We're in this together, and there's so many resources.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I cannot thank you enough, Billy, as your colleague, but more importantly, as your friend. It's been my absolute pleasure to speak with you today, to spotlight your teaching excellence, your passion, your empathy. All of your innovative practices in the classroom are truly inspirational to us all. So this concludes our 3rd episode of our webinar series, A Bird's Eye View. Please tune in as we highlight more of your amazing BC colleagues this summer. Thank you for joining us.